Hi friends, Kevin Schmidlin here, host and producer of Philly Who, and what you're about to hear is a live episode that was recorded last month at Drexel University. So a very special thanks to Caitlin Smith and the Drexel College of Computing and Informatics Women in Computing Initiative for putting this together. And as a reminder, if you want to catch the next live episode of Philly Who, it's on May 1st on the main stage of World Cafe Live with Mike Salmanov, Steve Cook, and special appearances by Jesse Ito and Becca Craig. Ticket links are in the show notes. Hope to see you there, and hope you enjoy this episode.
It was a joke. People kept asking, what was I going to do after Web Junto? And I was like, some kind of design, John. And people were like, I like that name. And I was like, all right, I guess I'm registering a business called Design John.
Yeah. You're listening to Philly Who, the podcast that tells the stories of the doers, thinkers, and performers of Philadelphia. My name is Kevin Schmidlin, and in this very special live episode from Drexel University, I'm chatting with Liz Brown. Liz is a designer, coder, and entrepreneur. Her love for the tech scene pushed her to start Web Junto, a software development company. But for Liz, Web Junto wasn't just about developing apps. She wanted to create a workplace that was diverse and inclusive.
I don't hire based on what people can do in this moment. I hire based on potential. That's very important as a woman of color and underrepresented founder, that I see the potential in others that others didn't see in me.
Today, she's a managing director at Backstage Capital, a company that invests in underrepresented founders. But before Liz became successful, her path was a little unpredictable.
And I was like, I need to go do something different. I want to go somewhere. And my 18-year-old self was like, let's go talk to the military recruiters.
And Liz, who's originally from Buffalo, New York, had no plans to ever live in Philadelphia.
And I hated it here for the first 2 years.
Now, things are different. Liz has gone from hating Philadelphia to becoming a key player in the city's tech scene, whether she's teaching a college course, developing an app, or managing a whole company.
People always try to put you in a box, and you don't have to be. The trick is to know how to market yourself. And once you know how to tell your story and how to market yourself, all kinds of crazy opportunities open up.
The story of Liz Brown, now live on Philly Who. Just a heads up, there is some cursing in this episode. So, anybody who's been around the Philly tech scene since 2014 has probably heard the name Liz Brown. She's a board member of Philly Startup Leaders, a local nonprofit that helps Philly entrepreneurs. Her first company, Web Junto, won the 2017 Timmy Award for Best Tech Workplace for Diversity. And in 2018, she was the Girls Are Rad Technologist of the Year. Now, today, this LGBT woman of color is celebrated for the ways she breaks the mold of a traditional entrepreneur. But that wasn't always the case. In fact, growing up, and even later while in the military and elsewhere, she and her quirky uniqueness were not accepted.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know this about me. I actually dropped out of high school at 16. I used to get picked on pretty bad. I was very different in my neighborhood. It was a predominantly African-American neighborhood. I'm a mixed kid that was really nerdy. I used to walk around on stilts in my neighborhood. I was super awkward just in general. And I really stood out in my neighborhood. So a lot of people used to pick on me for being different.
What was the conversation like? What was the decision like to leave school?
It was pretty easy because my days got pretty bad when I was in high school is when I came out. And so I got picked on quite a bit because there weren't many kids that were out back then. It just got to the point where I just didn't want to be there. And I love school. I was in like special honors programs and things like that, but I just didn't want to be there anymore. So I asked my parents to take me out, and I never told them why actually until I hit my 30s.
Wow.
Wow.
So at that point you drop out of school, and what was your plan? What did you want to do? What did you want out of life?
I didn't know because I was 16. So, I mean, for the most part, I wanted to travel. I wanted to see the world because my parents could never afford to take us anywhere. So I always wanted to go somewhere. I always wanted to see what was beyond my neighborhood. So that's kind of always been my dream.
Yeah, and did you manage to, at that point, go somewhere and travel?
Yeah, that's when I turned 18 is when I went to the Air Force after my first couple years of school. So my first trip, though, was when I was in 7th grade, and my aunt and uncle didn't have any kids. They took me on a vacation, and that was the first time. They were pretty wealthy, so that was the first time that I realized I was poor, and I knew what I didn't have. because I never knew before then that we didn't have things. My parents always went out of their way to make us feel like we had everything.
Yeah.
And that kind of spiraled into me seeing a lot of things from different perspectives over the years.
So when you made the decision to join the Air Force, was it strictly so that you can travel, or was there something else that you saw in the military that you wanted to pursue?
Yeah, it was crazy because it was right after 9/11. So my mom was really upset with me, but I wanted to see the world. So I just took the chance to do it because my grandfather was in the military for over 20 years in the Air Force. So my mom grew up around the world and she speaks multiple languages. So in my household, you hear Greek, English, Turkish. So I always wanted to be able to have that same experience and see something different.
Yeah. Was it hard to do that when it was against your mother's will?
Yeah, my mom was pretty upset with me. But at the time, when you're 18, you just kind of go with the flow and do what feels right. So I actually had a breakup and I thought it was the end of the world. And I was like, I need to go do something different. I want to go somewhere. And that breakup, like after that happened, my stupid 18-year-old self was like, let's go talk to the military recruiters. And I actually got lucky because I got stationed in Hawaii, which is really, really hard. And they say that they say don't even put it down as a choice because like you're wasting a choice. And I put Hawaii as my first choice and I got it.
Maybe you're the only one who actually did because everyone else was told not to.
Yeah, that's what I thought, That's what I thought.
There's a lesson. There's not as much competition as you think because everyone assumes, right?
Truth.
So you were stationed in Hawaii. That's amazing. So that was it a vacation, or did you enjoy your time in the military?
I enjoyed it until I was still dating men and women at the time, and I was still coming out, and it was really tough on me because in the military, there's a lot of things like date rape and stuff. A lot of crazy stuff happens on military bases. So I was really nervous to say no. So if someone asked me out on a date, I would kind of just go. And it was at the time of Don't Ask, Don't Tell was very active at that point. And so I wasn't in the military for very long because I actually got discharged on Don't Ask, Don't Tell because I outed myself out of fear of some of the dates that I was going on. I was like, this doesn't feel safe.
So at that point, I mean, were you upset that you had to leave?
I was super upset. I was actually scared that I was going to get caught because at that time, if somebody outed you, you would actually get a dishonorable discharge. And like I said, my dream was to travel the world, and I saw this as my only path to be able to do that because I couldn't, my parents couldn't financially afford that, and neither could I. So I was like, if I get caught, it was going to ruin everything for me, all of my plans. If I outed myself at the time, I had this feeling that maybe I might be able to figure something out with my commander, and I had always planned on going back after Don't Ask, Don't Tell was left.
That's crazy to me that was even a thing.
Yeah, it is.
So you leave the military, you go back to New York?
Yep, I went back to New York.
And at that point, what's your plan?
My plan was to go back to school. So I worked out something with one of the officers at my base where I wanted to go back to school, finish college and become an officer. And so I went back home and I worked for a while to save up money to be able to go back to school because, when you take a break like that, it messes up your financial aid and everything. Yeah. So I was like, I got to save money.
Yeah. How long did it take? Do you remember?
Oh man, it was definitely over a year. And I know when I went back to school was also hard because I went to Syracuse University for a semester and I couldn't afford it.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then you wound up going to the University of Buffalo, correct?
Yeah, I transferred from Cuse to Buffalo because it was back in the state system and very affordable. Yeah. So I ended up going there and I loved Buffalo. So
you got your degree in Buffalo in communications, but we're here to talk about technology.
Yeah.
So at that point, had you been working in technology?
I'd been coding since I was a teenager and was getting picked on as a hobby for years. And when I originally started college, I wanted to go to school for computer science, but it wasn't. My mom is Greek Orthodox. It wasn't something that we really talked about, me going to school for tech. It seemed kind of out of the ordinary. And so I ended up just always as a side hobby coding for fun. I took computer science classes in high school. And I actually took computer science classes when I studied communication because it was in the School of Informatics. My program was, because UB is a research institute.
Yeah.
So everyone was required to take at least the basics. So it's always been something lingering, and I paid for grad school by coding, actually.
Wow. Now, at this point, you're studying communications, and it sounds like it was just this hobby. Now, did you, like, if you were given the choice at that time, like if the sort of social stigma around it that you felt was taken away, would you have gone headfirst into technology at that point? Like, were you that interested in it, or was it always something that you kind of, yeah, it's a hobby, but that'll never happen?
I mean, if anyone that follows me will see I'm a jack of all trades type. So I'm very much, I think I lean more towards being a creative than anything else. So I've done music and theater. I've been singing since I was a kid. So like, to me, and I make beats. Like I do so many different creative things.
You have
so
time for all this.
I don't know. I don't know. I have no idea. But I like making music. I play guitar, and so like I've always I like to create things. And coding gave me a way to create something from scratch as well. So it just was always there, and I never saw it as something that had to be a career. I just always kind of leaned back to it with everything else that I did. Like everything that I've ever done, I've always coded something that has to do with it. Yeah.
Now, while you were at Buffalo, you studied abroad in Singapore.
My favorite place on earth.
Why?
I love Singapore. Singapore is beautiful. I never thought that I would be able to study abroad. I was trying to go to China. I studied Mandarin Chinese actually in college. And I wanted to go to China, but I wasn't allowed to go because you had to have more than one semester. So I went to the office for study abroad, and I was like, where can I go? where I can speak
Hawaii.
Chinese. Yeah, and they were like, Singapore, and I'd never heard of Singapore at all. I didn't know anything about it. But a lot of people don't know about Singapore, and so when I went there, I had no clue. And it was the most amazing time of my life. I wrote an essay to get a scholarship towards it, and I sold my car. I sold my car to buy my flight.
Wow.
And it was crazy because my parents couldn't give me any extra money. But Singapore was life-changing. I visited China while I was there. I visited Thailand. I visited Malaysia. And I go to Southeast Asia a lot, even now, to visit my friends. But Singapore, to me, was my first time really leaving the country and seeing different things and just different experiences. And it was wonderful.
Is there anything that you learned while studying abroad in Singapore that you think you still apply today?
Yeah, I learned, one thing I learned is people's perspectives matter. And a lot of the professors out in Singapore, they're very tough on American students coming in. They think that we're lazy. They think we don't read. And I had a class, one of my first classes I had there, I'm like the first person to raise my hand to volunteer for things. And I tried to answer a question about something in journalism. And the professor was like, we all know Americans don't read. And I was just like, oh my God, like what world am I in right now? And I just felt so insulted, and I actually dropped that class.
Right.
And it was very impactful to me personally because it took me out of this the veil of ignorance that I had about people's perspectives of me.
Yeah.
And so perspective to me is a very important thing. You have to understand other people's perspective of you wherever you are. And you have to kind of live in that world that you're in that moment and do the best you can to get through it.
Yeah.
And that's something I've always carried with me.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you'd recommend studying abroad then?
Yeah, studying abroad is great. If you have an opportunity to do it, you should.
Cool. I didn't, and I wish I did.
You can always do it.
That's true. I guess I should just leave right now.
Let's go.
So after you got your degree at Buffalo in communications, you pursued a master's in urban planning.
Yep.
Why urban planning?
So I grew up doing I've always volunteered in my community. I didn't even know urban planning existed. My dad was a city councilman, so I had always been super involved with him. So I love politics and I love just volunteering for things. And so urban planning seemed right up the alley for me, like perfect.
Yeah.
And it also was when I met my other half, and I was trying to figure out how to stay in Buffalo and all of that. And during the crash, there were no jobs. And I read somewhere, it was weird because I read somewhere that urban planning was going to be like one of the next big jobs, but no one was getting hired for anything at that point. So like when I graduated, there was just nothing.
Yeah. So in the degree itself, did the degree live up to your expectations? Like, did you find that you enjoyed and were good at urban planning as much as you thought you might be?
I love urban planning. I love urban planning because, again, it's my specialization in planning is community development. So you can go into a neighborhood and you do charrettes, or like we do in the software design business, we do discovery meetings of clients. It's the same thing, right? You go into a neighborhood and you help them rediscover it, and you help them kind of come up with creative ideas to innovate that neighborhood and make it stronger than it was the day before. So that's, to me, again, it goes back to just being a creator and redesigning neighborhoods, and it's actually helped me a lot in everything else that I've done too. So.
And learning other people's perspectives, right?
Yes.
Going back to what you said before, figuring out the perspective of the people that live here and what would make their life better, how could it improve. That's I think a very, very common theme as we see as the story progresses. Now, you got the master's in urban planning. Now you're still in New York. What brought you to Philadelphia?
So my partner got into Temple Dental, and it was either going to be Boston, Buffalo, or here. And
what were you rooting for?
The crazy thing was we were both rooting for Buffalo. We wanted to stay in Buffalo because Buffalo and Philadelphia actually have a lot of similarities. Buffalo's also been kind of in the come up for years now.
Sure.
So we were doing a lot of really cool projects there, and I thought it would be a great place to be. Plus, she was like a presidential honors student, like she had a presidential scholarship. So we thought for sure she was going to get in. Yeah. And we were just planning on buying a house and staying there because it was cheap. And she didn't get in. And then we went to Boston on a bus for a day because that's all we could afford. And she didn't get into Boston. And then she got into Temple, and we're like, guess we're going to Philly. But we had no idea at that point. Guess we're going here. That's it.
So, I mean, were you disappointed? You must have been disappointed.
Yeah, I had no. Well, the crazy thing is, the only thing I wanted was to be with her. So it didn't matter so much to me where we ended up. It just was the progression of our relationship after 4 years. Right. It just seemed like the right thing to do was go wherever she got into dental school. And the reason that it was so easy for me to agree to that is because she's from Vietnam. So she came to America to go to school and go to dental school. So what was I going to do? Be like, sorry, we've been together for 4 years. So you just peace out and go to Philly by yourself. It was everything she worked up to. So I wasn't really disappointed. I just didn't know what to expect. And I hated it here for the first 2 years.
Oh, really? What did you hate about it? Do I dare?
Yeah, do you dare ask? I don't want to say I hated working in urban planning, but it was one of the hardest jobs I've ever had to do.
So you got a job here in urban planning?
Yeah, it's when I was working for the city housing department as a neighborhood advisory coordinator. And it was my first job. Well, technically not my first job out of grad school, because I did take one gig when I first moved here wearing a sign and walking around Old City.
What did the sign say?
The sign was for Education Nation. It was some stupid thought bubble that was over it was so embarrassing, but I was like $15 an hour, and I do have a picture somewhere.
That'll be in the show notes.
That was just horrible. But after that is when I landed the job as a neighborhood advisory coordinator, and people in the neighborhoods did not like me.
Yeah.
They did not like me. And so it was very frustrating because I also didn't know Philly. And people in Philly, if you're not from Philly, it takes a long time. So it was very difficult on me, and I was young and naive and thought I could change the world as a planner. And people were like, who does this girl think she is coming in? And I just felt horrible.
So you're here in a place that you really don't like, that you it sounds like you don't feel welcome to.
Yeah.
What do you do at that point? Do you just kind of suck it up and go to work every day, or how did you approach that situation?
I tried to make the best of it. I just went to work and worked really hard. Some nights I was working until 8 p.m. and it was also my first time working in an organization surrounded by people of color, because I'm from upstate New York. So you don't get a lot of opportunities like that. I'm not a city person, not a big city person. I'm a small city person, and it was just great to be surrounded by other people of color. So for me, it was just another opportunity to learn from other people and do something great. So I just kind of sucked it up.
Yeah. When did the table start turning and you started, because I think you enjoy it now, right? I mean,
Yeah,
it seems that
yeah.
you like it here. So
I love Philly now.
how did that change? Like, when did the tide start to turn in the direction towards Philly?
Well, when I lost my job, they always say when you lose your job, it could be like one of the best things for you. And like when you hear that, it's like, that's bullshit. But but then when you're actually living your life and it happens, it really is game changing, because I had started that second master's in information design and tech, and then I wanted to create programs to teach people how to code and do design and things like that. And then I lost my job. I got furloughed. My whole office got furloughed. 6 months I was waiting to get called back to work, and nothing. And I was like, well, I got to finish this program a minute, and then what am I going to do when I'm done? Like, where am I going to go? I'm an urban planner with a degree in technology. Like, what can I do?
Yeah.
And no one would hire me.
Yeah.
And I went to my first meetup. That's when I went to my first meetup.
And what was the meetup?
It was Code for Philly with Girl Develop It. They had a joint meetup on civic hacking, and that's actually where I met my co-founder, Jedi.
Really?
Yeah.
And so what was that first meeting like?
It was awesome. It was awesome because I got to meet so many, like the tech community in Philly is so friendly and so inviting. And I got to meet so many cool people at that first meetup. They're like, are you looking for work? And I was like, what? Where am I? Like, all of a sudden people are asking me if I need help landing a job, and everyone was super friendly. And Jedi invited me to a hackathon with him like a week later, and we just became friends, and we started going to hackathons together for like 6 months while I was looking for a job. I figured hackathons were my path to showing people that I can code and that I can design. Yeah. And if I could just throw myself out there, something will land.
Yeah. Is there a particular hackathon that was really fun or that you created something really cool at?
Oh man, I think, the hackathon, I got Al Jazeera paid for me to go to Doha.
What? You did a hackathon there?
Yeah.
What was that like?
It was amazing because I had never been to the Middle East before either. I learned about it at another hackathon here. Someone came in and they were just like, yeah, there's going to be a hackathon that's for journalism and da-da-da. And if you want to apply, it's like all expenses paid. And no one was really paying attention because it was like a happy hour kind of situation. And I was like, I'm going home and I'm filling out that application. and I did. And they picked 100 people from around the world. 2 of us from Philly. It was me and a professor from Temple. Wow. And they flew us out there. They paid for everything. They had servants. It was nutso because, like hackathons usually have pizza and it's like janky, you know, you get pizza and Red Bull and
Mountain Dew.
Yeah, but you go out there and it was like, they had servants, they planned everything, they paid for everything. And they also broadcast parts of it, which was insane. Like the people I got to work with at that event were from all around the world. So we had one person on my team from South America, another person from Israel, and she was an anchor. He was like a TV anchor. Yeah, and then we had a guy who he was from Italy, and I think he worked on like Yahoo Maps or something back in the day. It was a crazy group of people, and someone from South Africa. Like my team was made up from awesome people around the world, and our goal was to build a project to make information accessible. What would we build to do that? So we built an app that was location based, so it told you what was going on around you in that moment. Yeah, it was pretty cool. That was an awesome 48 hours.
Yeah, wow. So then, at what point did this go from just I do hackathons occasionally to I think I might start a company?
I had been asking Jedi. I loved working with Jedi at these hackathons, and I'd been asking him to work with me. Because I was like, well, listen, like I was getting the worst projects by myself. I was getting all these projects off Craigslist. People didn't want to sign my contracts. I was being taken advantage of. And I felt like if I had a white male co-founder, it would make my life a lot easier. Yeah. And people would probably sign my contracts and things like that. And we worked well together and we had fun together. So it just was a natural fit. So after about 6 months of going to hackathons together, he finally said, Liz, I'm quitting my job. I'm ready to work with you. Wow. And so I just pulled all my clients in and we started WebJunto.
Yeah, you started a company.
Yeah.
So now you no longer have that perspective that tech is this kind of side thing that would never work out. So did you wind up like telling your family that you were starting a tech company? Was that difficult?
Yeah, my dad was super hype about it, and my mom was just like, no, no, Lizzie, don't do that. My mom is always the one that's afraid of me being a risk taker.
Right.
And my dad is also entrepreneurial. So like he's always been down.
Yeah.
He's always been down with me just going out. He's the one who dragged me to register my first company before WebJunto. He dragged me to City Hall and had me like fill out all the paperwork and everything in upstate New York and just made me do it.
Yeah. So how quickly until WebJunto really started taking off? Like, was it a quick, immediate success?
You know what? It's crazy because we started with just the two of us, but we had 3 co-ops, I think, from Drexel. We started with a pretty awesome team. We were always super diverse, always doing different things. People noticed us right away. We are kind of good BSers, you know, like we pretty much always made ourselves look much bigger than we were. And that's that fake it till you make it approach that we took for everything we did. We had a lot of partnerships with co-working spaces and things that we were hosting events. We started the Philly Junto meetup. And when we started that meetup, we were hosting monthly events that just like, we had very good turnout.
Yeah. So after spending so much time struggling to find work, how did you approach hiring people?
My approach to hiring people has always been to give people the opportunity that I didn't have. So I'm very much the kind of person that I hire based on, I don't hire based on what people can do in this moment. I hire based on potential. Yeah. I think that that's very important as a woman of color and underrepresented founder, that I see the potential in others that others didn't see in me.
So do you remember where you were when you found out that WebJunto had won the award for Best Tech Workplace for Diversity?
I was sitting down with a few people from my team. We did not think we were going to win, but we were just excited to even be on the list because Comcast was also on the list. So
right.
like, first off, it was a community vote. So like, I didn't think, even if Comcast just asked their employees to all vote, there was no way that we would have won,
right, in
my mind, right? But when we won, it was crazy because they looked at me and we were just sitting there and I was just like so stunned. I turned and they were telling me to go and I was like, come with me. And I think I was probably the only person to bring my team on stage and we were crying. We were in tears. If you look closely at the photos, we had tears in our eyes. Wow. It was amazing. It was awesome.
Wow, that is cool. And then would you say that was one of the most triumphant moments in your time at WebJunto?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
WebJunto became huge, right? Anybody who was involved in the Philly tech scene knew of WebJunto, knew of you and Jedi. You know, you guys were killing it. So then at what point it was only, 4 years until you moved on. What made you decide to move on?
Yeah, so when we first started the company, we never planned on growing a huge company. And me and Jedi have always been different in the directions we wanted to go in general. So when we started the company, we had all these ideas of how we were going to branch off into different things. And we finally got to the point where, you know, we just weren't aligned anymore in the values that we both carry individually. And it just didn't feel right. You know, I think we hit 1.5 in revenue that last year. We started the business with $250 out of my pocket, $250 out of his, and we paid ourselves back like 2 weeks later. So we started the business with almost nothing. And when we got the company up to that point, I think we were at about 24 employees. We had a couple of people in Finland, the guy in Costa Rica, someone in Barcelona, and most of our team was here, local. It was really just awesome to get to that point, but I felt stifled and I wanted to continue growing just for my own like professional development. And I feel like I can create more opportunities for other people like me if I just moved on and did something different.
Yeah. So that must have been a tough conversation to have.
Yeah, it was very difficult. It was very difficult, and there were several arguments and things. What a lot of people don't know is that it was my idea to kind of walk away from WebJunto, and a lot of people are really confused as to what happened, but we just weren't aligned anymore. It just didn't feel, like what it was. You know, our team was awesome. Me and Jedi had an awesome flow working together, but at that moment, in the last few months of the business, it just didn't feel like we wanted to go in the same direction. And we just kind of, I wouldn't say we grew apart. Some people say it felt like a divorce. It's like, but it wasn't like we grew apart. We still talk and everything. And, I still wish the best for him and what he's doing with Open Forge. But at the same point, I needed to continue growing.
How do you, so, I think we've all been in a position like that where you're involved in something that's been successful and you get that feeling in your gut that it's time to move on. And that can be really, really, really difficult to come to terms with and believe. So having gone through that, any advice for anybody who might be feeling that about something in their life right now?
Yeah, you just got to be confident in yourself and what you want to do. And I think for a long time, I was the compromising half of the partnership. I've always prided myself in being a very collaborative person, and I love working with other people. But I think I allowed myself to take it too far and continue to compromise when I should have been carrying confidence in myself and the ideas that I had. And so that's why I'm pretty proud of where I've landed anyway, because I felt like that confidence that I needed is what helped me be able to walk away and say, hey, you know what? I can do more than this. I can do something bigger than this. I can help so many more people that don't have opportunities.
Yeah.
So
tell me about the night that you attended the 2018 Rad Girl Awards.
I didn't want to go.
So you were nominated.
Yeah, I was nominated, and I didn't want to go because I was like, I'm not going to win this. And I didn't really care if I won. A lot of the other contests in Philly, I know the other women or technologists that are nominated, and I'm just like, wow, they're just such amazing people. I don't think that I'm going to take this home, so I'll just show up to say hi and, show face.
Show some face, yeah.
Yeah, I hung out in the back, and again, I was stunned. I had no clue that my name's gonna be read.
Yeah.
The crazy thing is, because I was so unprepared, I had no idea what I was gonna say when I went up. And if you see the video that my partner made, I looked completely stunned because I was just like, what? Like, they had to tell me that they said my name, basically. Like, people around me were like screaming, and I was just like, what? Yeah, like I was like, what's going on? And they said my name. In a lot of the thank yous that I give, I usually, give shout outs to my team because I would have been nothing without the people who supported me.
Yeah.
You're nothing without your supporters. So you have to stay humble and you have to thank the people around you that helped you get to where you are.
Yeah. Wow. So you leave WebJunto at that point. So you said you felt stifled.
Yeah.
What was it then that you wanted to do?
I think what I really wanted to do was focus more not on diversity and inclusion, but because that's something that just follows me as a woman of color anyway.
Right.
I can't really escape those conversations. People are always going to pull you into it when you're a woman of color and you're in tech. I think for me, I just wanted to experience more. And I love event planning and I love consulting. I love design thinking. And I felt like being stuck in just software development and user experience wasn't enough. I wanted to pull myself out and focus more on experience design as a whole and be able to help people with design thinking and experience as a whole. So I had to step back and say, you know what, maybe I need to code a little bit less and put myself in a position where I can help other people. Like it was a sacrifice.
Yeah.
And we had disagreements about me not wanting to code as much anymore because I was like, we have a team for this and people are asking me to go do more public speaking and things.
Yeah.
So I should be out there telling my story and being involved and, I don't want to be selfish.
So, but you have to leave something that's established and well-known and proven to do something from scratch once more.
Yeah.
So is that the point that you started Design John?
Yeah, and I think I was telling you this before, Design John was a joke.
It was a joke.
It was a joke. People kept asking, what was I going to do after WebJunto? And I was like, some kind of Design John. I don't know. And people were like, I like that name. And I was like, all right, I guess I'm registering a business called Design John.
Yeah. And now you're with Backstage Philly. So how did that opportunity come to be?
It's insane. I try to say this in the most short way that I can.
Oh, no,
I accidentally won a hour conversation with Arlen Hamilton, the founder of Backstage Capital. And it was super random because I've been following Backstage for a long time. Just a fan of the work that they do because working with underrepresented founders is something that's really, I'm passionate about it. And it was super random because I retweeted something where she was like, oh, you can win an hour with me. I'll go. And I was just like, oh, I want to retweet this to people that follow me. They'll love this. And they picked me. And I was like, get out of town. Like 1,500 people retweeted this.
Yeah.
How did they pick me? So that's kind of how I started to have conversations with them. But that's not where we started talking about
What did you talk
the
about in that hour?
I never got it.
Oh.
I still have not gotten this. So what happened is...
So I was going to say, I thought those Twitter things were BS, so I guess they actually are.
Yeah, I never actually got the hour because me and Arlen, we were speaking at a lot of the same events. And so we never have been able to like really schedule the time to meet. And I met her for 5 minutes at a private event. Black and Brown Founder Project was having a dinner, a private like dinner thing. And she also was invited. So she popped in, she was only there for like 15 minutes. And she gave me 5 of those minutes and was like, Liz, reach back out to me in a couple of weeks. I have this big announcement I'm gonna make. And that was when she made the announcement for the $36 million fund for black women entrepreneurs. And I was like, we just don't have the time. Like, we never have the time. So I'm just going to chill on this. We're never going to find time, but we know the same people. Eventually, we'll have a conversation. I held off. And then I was like, well, maybe I want to launch an accelerator in a co-working space with my distribution from WebJunto. Maybe that's my calling in life. And I shot her a message. So I mentioned to her that I wanted to launch an accelerator for underrepresented founders in Philly and that I was on the path to doing it. And she kind of said, hold that thought, we're trying to do something similar. And I was like, well, I'm a collaborative person. So if y'all are trying to do it, I would rather wait and see, how that goes and help with that, like support it whatever way I can. And it kind of came full circle when they decided that they were doing it. I had actually been interviewing in all kinds of other places and like considering, maybe I'll go work somewhere for a little bit. And then they came back to me and they were like, Liz, would you want to run this? It was never an interview or like a big conversation. It was just like, oh, Liz, like we've been giving your name.
You retweeted us, so you could probably run it.
Because they had heard about me. We knew the same people, and also with me volunteering and things with stuff with Black and Brown Founder Project and her knowing Ania. It's like a whole bunch of relationships finally stacked up to something really meaningful in that moment. And when they asked me to do it, I kind of just dropped everything and was like, of course, I will take this contract. Like, who wouldn't want to work with Backstage? The team is awesome and the mission is awesome. And it's just a beautiful thing to be able to tell people that they're going to get funding to build their project.
Oh my gosh. Can you tell us about like one particular moment telling somebody that they got the funding?
Oh man, several people cried. We did everything through video chats and things like that. And like to see a grown man cry on video chat, a grown black man cry on video chat when they find out they're getting $100,000, we cried. Like in a lot of the calls, we cried. Our team was in tears with people when we called them. And that's something that I think is really interesting about Backstage is that the team is so like empathetic. Yeah. Everybody really cares and is excited to give other people these opportunities as underrepresented founders. So it's just great whenever we get to do those phone calls. I love it.
You must get asked this all the time, but for somebody who's trying to start a venture or maybe doesn't even think that it's possible, kind of like you did back in the day, who is from an underrepresented group, if they were in the room right now, what would you tell them?
Just do it. Don't be afraid. Find a mentor, go to events, meet people. Come find me. I'm always happy to do coffee dates. I do lots of coffee dates with people. Even though I do a million things, somehow I find time. We found time for a coffee date not that long ago. Coffee date. And I'm always down to help people live out their dreams, even if it sounds crazy. Yeah. And there's a lot of other people who are too. You'd be surprised how many people will respond if you ask them for a coffee date. Just don't tell them you want to pick their brain, because that is like one of the number one things that it's just like, why do you say you want to pick my brain? You have nothing to offer in this meeting. But I get a lot of messages. I think right now I have like over 100 and something people waiting to connect with me on LinkedIn, which is, it happened after I joined Backstage. Like all of a sudden my LinkedIn went insane. And a lot of them have like, I want to pick your brain, Liz. Yeah. Like, and I'm just like, what? Like, I try not to judge. I love you all. I try not to judge, but it's like, just be honest and say, what you're hoping to get out of a conversation, and also maybe how you can help me with something. I think a lot of people say that, but I think it's important. Everybody has something to offer too. Don't feel like you don't. Everyone has something to offer.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, Not certainly that scale, but recently I've had quite a few people reaching out to pick my brain about podcasting, and it comes a point where you simply just can't.
And that's how we met.
Well, it is. Yeah.
That's how we met.
Well, some people you take the hour, you take the coffee date, but you just have to. I'll respond to the people who have something specific to talk about, like they leave it open to a phone call, but I'll be like, you know what, now let's get coffee. Let me make the decision, and then I'm happy to do so. And list out, I want to talk about this part, that part, because then they've done the research to figure it out what it is they want to get out of the conversation. So, what are you excited about with Backstage for the next 3 to 6 months?
Oh man, first off, the companies that applied to come into the cohort are amazing. One of the things I'm most excited about is having people come in from outside of Philly, and my goal is to get them to stay. My goal is to get them to stay here and build their business here, because they need to hire technologists like us. They need to hire designers. They need, they're going to be growing their business. They should be growing it here.
Yeah. Can you tell me about Philly as if you were pitching to one of these people and trying to convince them to move here? What would you tell them?
First off, cost of living compared to places like New York, DC, San Fran. The cost of living here is really great for anybody wanting to start a business. It's just awesome. And then we have so many great universities right here in this city with super talented students. Like I said, I wouldn't have been anywhere if it wasn't for Drexel Co-op with WebJunto, because we've been using co-op from the very beginning. The power of interns, and not just interns, but interns from a great school, it really can make a huge impact on your business. And I'm already trying to set people up with co-ops that are coming into the cohort. So I'm already telling them, like, you got to get into Drexel Co-op program because now you have an office here.
Yeah. That's awesome. I've heard that you have another venture coming soon.
So me and a couple of friends are launching another company called BCKG, and all three of us have been doing the same type of work separately. And we all had very similar things happen to us with our previous co-founders and people we were working with, because all three of us are people of color, and we just feel like we've been devalued in the relationships we had in the past. Sure. We're going to be focusing on startup consulting, startup coaching, also working with probably enterprise projects as well, but really focusing on design thinking and technology innovation and helping people to get to the next level.
Yeah. So at what point you had the chance, when you walked away from WebJunto, you stayed here. Was there a moment or a day where you kind of realized, oh man, I'm a Philadelphian?
Yeah, actually it's crazy because after WebJunto, I thought to myself, well, what do I have in Philly? Should I stay here? And I've built a lot of really great relationships here, and it took a long time for me to love Philly. But I think when I realized that I was a Philadelphian was when I got into the Leadership Philly program, and so they're trying to keep me here too.
Yep.
And I bought my house here because I really do think that Philly is a great city, and there's a lot more going on than people realize as far as innovation, technology, and food. And I am a foodie. And a lot of people don't realize how good the food is here in Philly. I've traveled the world, and I will tell you, Philly has great food. Not just cheesesteaks, because they're not really that great. Someone's going to complain that I said that. I know it. Someone's going to complain.
I'm going to cut it out of the episode. Come on.
Yeah.
Nobody's hearing that.
There's events all the time. Yep. So I feel like Philly has it going on, and a lot of people just don't know.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people coming here from San Francisco lately. So we gotta keep going,
we'll keep
and
them.
we gotta keep the Philadelphians here.
Yeah. What would you say is the biggest, from your perspective, which is multifaceted, whether tech, urban, design, whatever it is, underrepresented folks? What is the biggest challenge facing Philadelphia today?
Ooh, that's a big one. I think the biggest challenge is that there's so much going on, and yet things are still very fractured. There are a lot of people that stick to what they know, and not enough people going out and taking a risk to learn about the other communities out here. I personally like to go to events that are organized around politics, nonprofits, technology, startups, anything STEM. I've gone to education conferences. I literally throw myself out there because I want to learn about everything that's going on and try to find ways to bridge it. I think that there's an amazing innovation ecosystem happening here, but not everyone that should be connected is connected yet.
Yeah. What would you say is a common misconception about you?
Oh man, a common misconception about me. I think some people are afraid to talk to me, which is weird because I have a very friendly face. So when I go shopping, a lot of random people will talk. I talk to people in stores all the time. You catch me at Best Buy, you will be getting advice. You will be getting advice on something. But for some reason, a lot of people that follow me, like now that I've reached like I can think of micro influencer point. There are people who walk past my office but won't come and say hi.
Look at you like through the glass.
And then I'll meet them somehow and they'll be like, oh, I've been wanting to say hi to you. And I'm just like, why haven't you? Like, I'm here, I'm super friendly. I love talking to new people and I'm a talker. So if you get caught with me, you might be stuck for at least a good 10 minutes. So I have no problem with meeting new people. And I think that some people they're just afraid to talk to people that they hear speak at an event or something like that. But I love it. Like, come say hello anytime.
If you could send a message to yourself in the past at any moment, butterfly effect aside, so won't lose everything.
I'm glad you had that in. That was really important.
I know everyone says essential. I really like where I am now, so I wouldn't change a thing. And like that's the question is, if you could send a message to yourself in the past, think of it maybe as even somebody else who might be in your shoes. At what point would you send it, and what would you say?
Oh man, I probably would have sent it to my teenage self because at that time I was really depressed when I was getting picked on. At the peak of me getting picked on, I thought about killing myself. Like I really didn't know. I didn't think things were going to get better. I didn't think things were going to get better at all. And I think I probably would go back and say, it's all going to be okay, and just follow your heart. And probably also just being a jack of all trades. Like, people always try to put you in a box. And you don't have to be. You can be a designer, a developer, and do music and theater, and you can do all these things. And the trick is to know how to market yourself. And once you know how to tell your story and how to market yourself, all kinds of crazy opportunities open up. It's when you don't know how to do those things that you're kind of screwed. So I think if I knew any of those things when I was younger, I probably would have gotten to this point much sooner. I didn't start WebJunto until I was 30. So
wow.
Yeah.
Finally, if you could get one message to every Philadelphian, whether a tweet, email, plane in the sky, billboard, whatever, one message that every Philadelphian could receive and ponder, what would you say?
Philadelphia is the future. I would say Philadelphia is the future. You got to be here to experience it. And if you leave, then you're missing out on a lot of awesome opportunities. Now is the time to be here.
Liz, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you for having me, Kevin.
Here's a very special thanks to Caitlin Smith and everybody at the Drexel University College of Computing and Informatics Women in Computing Initiative, and to all who came out to the live show. For more on Liz and her journey, you can head to podphillywho.com/Liz, that's Liz, or just check out the show notes. If you like the show, I invite you to make sure you're subscribed and maybe even tell one friend of yours who might also like it. Really, text them right now, please. It really helps. You can also follow along on Twitter and Instagram at podphillywho. Philly Who is a Q9 production. This episode's associate producers are Angela Gervasi and Bryce Lobel, with editing by Max Graham, music by Lee Rosevere, and artwork by Lauren Carhart. For Philly Who, my name is Kevin Schmidlin. Thanks for listening.